Hello, I think that I'm now live, but you're not going to hear this for 30 seconds. Weird, but that's how it is. There's a 30-second delay between what I say and what you hear. What I'm going to do is run through how to work through the additional tables and the Ogden tables, as you know, and I'm going to deal with all the questions that come up at the end, because if you fire a question now, I don't get it for 30 seconds because you're hearing what happened 30 seconds ago. So if you look towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see in the bar there's a pair of speech bubbles. One of them has a question mark in it. Any questions, pop them in there. I'll deal with them all at the end. You can put any technical questions about having trouble with video or sound or whatever in there as well. Emily's online and she'll sort that out for you. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute so you can see what I'm doing. Before I do that, I need a volunteer. What I'm going to do is an example calculation to show you how to use these additional tables, and it works best if I've got a real age to work with, and I want something from one of you guys so that it doesn't look like I've just prepped everything in advance, because I want you to see just how easy this really is once you've got the hang of it. So please volunteer. All I need is a name and a date of birth. You can give a false name if you want, but if you want to know about your own life expectancy on a statistical average basis, then give your real birthday, and I'll use that to work through as an example. So I'll share the screen with you now, and hopefully, I'm looking that way because I've got two screens on the go. Hopefully everything will come together well. Okay, you're now looking at Google. I'll just get rid of the little webinar bubble there to get that out of the way. First thing I'm going to do is show you how to get hold of the additional tables in case you haven't already got them. They are on the Government Actuary Department's website. So I have just popped in there, Government Actuaries Department, Ogden Tables 8th edition, and that takes you here. What you've got on this website is the PDF version if you want to print a copy to have on your desk. Then you've got the main tables, what you think of as the Ogden tables. There's now 36 of them because they've included some different retirement ages as against last time. And we've got these additional tables here. That's what we're going to be looking at today. There's lots more that can be said about the Ogden tables. This is just a quick tour through the most useful feature of the 8th edition, and that's the additional tables. So I'll click on that. It will download down here, and I will open it up in Excel. Now, let me check on my messages. Thank you, Emily. Someone called Steve has volunteered their date of birth. I don't know whether it's a real name or not, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this as though I were dealing with a real case for a claimant, Steve. And the first thing I will do is save this, enable editing, and save this document so that instead of being called Ogden Tables 8th edition, etc., I'm going to call it Steve, so that I've got a record of my multipliers for future use for this claimant. Right, let's have a quick tour around what we've got. We've got some notes which explain largely what I'm about to tell you. Then we've got males and females at minus 0.25% discount rates, males and females at minus 0.75% discount rates. The reason for that is that that is still the appropriate discount rate in Scotland. I'm going to be using the minus 0.25 figures today with litigating in England and Wales, and over here we've got males at 0% and females at 0%. I'm just going to show you the main point of these. I'll do it by reference to females at 0%. Before we go much further, let's get a handle on the way that these spreadsheets are laid out. I'm going to zoom in so you can see more clearly. In column A here, we've got age at date of trial. So as we go down, we can see that the age increases. First and possibly most significant trick is this. Do not confuse the age at date of trial with the row number. So a 27-year-old at date of trial is on row number 33, and it's because up here you've got 5 rows that are used just for heading purposes. So if I want a 27-year-old, I need to use age at date of trial 27 and not row 27. As you look across, you can see that you start to get multipliers from age at date of trial to a given age. So if I take a 10-year-old, there's no multiplier to age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 because they've already passed those ages, or 10. But if I go across slightly, I find that the multiplier to age 11 is, as you might expect, 1. Multiplier to age 12 is 2, and so on. And you'll see that for the first few years it stays as a whole number. And then at some point, mortality risk starts to kick in and we start to see slightly less than a full number. The reason I've gone in first to the 0% table is just to show you how to get life expectancy easily. If I just go across to the end of this, we can see that the chance of this person living, or the life expectancy of my 10-year-old up to age 125 is 80.08. And you know that that's not real because this 10-year-old isn't going to live to 125, and that's why the figure is the same at 124. And it's the same at 123 and 122 and so on all the way back. All of these figures are showing you the full life expectancy for a 10-year-old. And we'll do Steve's in a minute. In fact, let's do Steve's now, just by way of example. So he's a male, so I've gone to the male's 0%. No, I'm not going to do Steve's. I'm just going to give you a random aged male as an example. Sorry, Steve, you'll find out your multipliers, not your actual life expectancy. So I've gone to a 30-year-old male. I'm going to skip across to the end. My life expectancy is 55.46 for a 30-year-old male. Let's get into dealing with multipliers. That's what this is all about. I'm going to use Steve as my example, so I'm going to go into males at minus 0.25%. You can see it's the same shape. If I were to use my 10-year-old again, I've got nothing through years 1 to 10, and then the multiplier to age 11 shown up here. I'll zoom in a bit. Is 1. The multiplier to age 12 is 2. The multiplier to age 13 is slightly more than 3 because we're allowing now for the negative discount rate. So Steve's date of birth is 9th of November 1981. First thing I need to do is work out how old that makes him. So I'm going to go back to Google. I use timeanddate.com simply because it's the first website that came up when I searched in Google days between dates. I'm going to put in Steve's birthday here, 9th of 11, 1981. I've got the end date is today's date over here. Calculate duration, and it will tell me down here 38 years, 8 months and 19 days. So all I've done is work out precisely how old our claimant, in this instance Steve, is. He's 38 years, 8 months, 19 days. Back to my spreadsheet. I'm already in males minus 0.25%, so I'm going to go down to the 38 and 39 rows. We know that Steve falls between those two figures. I'm going to put him in by inserting a blank row in there. I have a shortcut at the top of the screen. It might be that you don't and you need to go to Insert and Insert Sheet Rows. I'll highlight it so you can see what we're working on. I've inserted a row between 38 and 39, and into that box I'm going to put Steve's age. He is 38 years plus 8 months. Oops. 8 over 12 plus 19 over 365. So 38 years, 8 months and 19 days, just like the website showed us a minute ago. So his age is 38.7187. Steve, many happy returns of the day. So if we go across, we will discover that we haven't actually got any multipliers in there because we don't have a formula for it yet. We've got the multipliers for a 38-year-old and we've got the multipliers for a 39-year-old, but not the multipliers for a 38.7187-year-old. So we're going to put them in. This is simple interpolation. Interpolation is a word that sounds scary, but all it means is putting a point in on a data line. It's not some sort of impossible to comprehend mathematical term. We know, if we look over here between 38 and 39, that we need to get to 38.7187. So effectively 71.87% of the way from 38 to 39. How do we do it? This is the only thing that you're likely to want to write down during this presentation. We need to get 71.87% of the way from that figure, 2 here, to that figure, 1. See what I'm doing? There's my 38 line. In fact, I'll move the screen across a bit so that these things are slightly closer to one another. There's the multiplier from 38 to 40. There's the multiplier from 39 to 40. And I always do this in this row where you have the first unit above and below the age that you want to interpolate for, because it's very easy when you do that to check that you've got it right. Now, the formula, the only thing you're likely to want to write down, it is the bigger multiplier. In this instance, it's A044. So that box there is the bigger one, minus, and I'm about to take off 71.87% of the difference. So it's minus the bigger multiplier again, A044, less the smaller. See what I've done there? I have said bigger less the difference between the two, but I only want to take off a percentage of the difference between the two. So I multiply by times 0.7187. I'm going to go over that again slowly because it was the source of some questions last time I did this talk last week. So the formula is the bigger multiplier minus bigger multiplier less smaller multiplier times by the decimal from over here to show how much you want to move from the bigger figure to the smaller figure. So when I hit return, I find that it's calculated a multiplier for me of 1.28. It's always a good idea to just do a little bit of reality checking of that figure. We know that we wanted to get 71% of the way from 38 to 39, so we know that our figure should be closer to the 39 multiplier than the 38 multiplier. And look, it is. So we can be pretty confident we've got that right. Now, all we need to do to put that across all of these different ages is copy it. I'm going to use Control-C, and then I'm going to highlight all of the other boxes. And hit Control-V to get that same formula in every column. So what we've done then is for Steve, we've created a life multiplier with the mortality contingency in there and a minus 0.25% discount rate, life multiplier of 49.14. I'm just going to write that on a piece of paper. 49.14 equals life. I'll explain why in a minute, and it's also cell DV45. You'll see why I want a note of that in a moment. Right, now let's see how to use these additional tables. I'm so happy that the Ogden group have created this because it makes life so easy for working out multipliers. Let's take a simple example. At trial, Steve is 38.7187, and we want to know his working life multiplier to age 67. So we go across to the column headed 67, and we discover that his working life multiplier to age 67 is 28.24. What if the court says he's going to earn a certain amount till age 50 and then a different amount from 50 to 67? Simple. To age 50, our multiplier is 11.33. I'll jot it up here as an aid memoir. To age 50 equals AY45. So we know that our multiplier for Steve from 38.7187 to 50 is 11.33. In fact, let me do quite a short example. What if we want to know what the multiplier is from his age 50 to age 55? To age 55, it's that figure there, BD45. Oops. What have I done? Oh, that's interesting. That has not done what I expect it to, so I'm going to put it in by hand. Equals 16.36. Oh, how annoying. There must be a glitch in this formula. Ah, there we go. There it is. I need to turn it into general. That's the first time I've found that in these tables. They usually have the formula set at the have the cells set at what they really should be, but I guess it's because I've started using the blank rows up here. So what I was trying to achieve was to calculate my multiplier from age 50 to age 55. Well, it's as easy as this, 50 to 55. I won't make the same mistake twice, change that to general. Equals BD3, that's my multiplier to age 55, minus AY, BD2 I should say, minus AY2. So the formula that I've typed in is the multiplier to 55 minus the multiplier to 50. And it gives me a figure of 5.03, which I know for a man of Steve's age, 38.7187, is the correct multiplier to use now for the period between age 50 and 55. I was talking before about retirement age of 67. So if I pop that in here to age 67, equals BP 45. So there's my multiplier for a working life to 67. And do you remember earlier I wrote down the life multiplier? I'm going to do it all on the screen at the top here so you can see it, see what I'm doing. Life multiplier was cell DV45, which I noted as 49.14, and there it is. So if I wanted a pension loss multiplier from age 67 for the rest of life, I would simply say his life multiplier, so that's BS3, no, BS2, minus his working life multiplier, minus BP2. So what I've done there is I've taken his life multiplier and I've subtracted his working life multiplier, which gives me a pension loss multiplier. You can do this for any period you want. If you want the multiplier from 70 to 75, you just subtract the 75 multiplier from the 70 multiplier. So this is an incredibly powerful way of doing it, because you can calculate as many little split multipliers as you want without all of the faff of comparing multipliers in what used to be table 28 and using the split multiplier technique. So that's it. It really is as easy as that. 3 tricks, I'll give you a reminder. 1, use the age, not the row number. Trick 2, the formula. It's the greater multiplier minus, open brackets, greater multiplier minus small multiplier to show me the difference. And how much of the difference do I want? Times the decimal that I'm trying to work from the greater multiplier to the lesser multiplier. Copy that in everywhere. And then final big trick is from this age at trial to any age, you have the multipliers And if you want to get the multiplier between different periods, you just subtract one from the other. So from here, 50 to 55, we took 55, we took 50, and we subtracted one from the other. That's it. It really is that easy, and it saves so much time when you're drafting schedules and counter schedules. I'm going to check my I'll stop screen sharing and check for questions. Okay. Get those on the side. Right then. Gosh, this is quite it's nice to have a detailed question coming up first of all. If you reckon you've grasped everything that you want to, then feel free to drift off. I'm just going to deal with everything that comes up. First question is this. Footnote 55 of Ogden 8 states that the lost contribution method for pension loss understates the claim, perhaps significantly. Do we know why no other defined contribution methods were shown if that is the case, please? It's almost like I've got a plant in the audience. Thank you, whoever it was. That's a question from Anonymous. It just gives me a brilliant opportunity to plug this. It's the Personal Injury Bar Association Guide to Calculating Pension Loss, written, you might notice, by these characters here, including me. It's available on the PIBA website, piba.org.uk, or via the St John's website. It answers questions like that. Do you know what? I'm not going to deal with that in this talk because it's not really a question about using the Ogden 8 additional tables. But if you want to email me about it separately, then please do. Right, next question is, does the updated guidance on disabilities kill Connor and Bradman? So again, it's not an additional tables question, but it's a sensible question. I'll answer it quickly because that's not what we're really here for. So for years now, Victoria Wass, who's the statistician who is responsible for tables A to D in the Ogden tables, has been saying, look, Connor and Bradman is wrong. So Connor and Bradman, for those who don't remember, is the case where the judge treated a claimant not as having a full table B disabled reduction factor, nor as having a table A non-disabled reduction factor, but split the difference, effectively treating the claimant as half disabled. And for years now, Victoria Wass has been writing in the Journal of Personal Injury Law that that approach is flawed. Either someone is disabled, in which case they get the full benefit of table B, or they're not, in which case they get none of it. She's now, completely unsurprisingly, saying as much in the notes to the Ogden tables, but she has been saying it for years. She's been saying it since Connor and Bradman, and courts have still been using the Connor and Bradman approach, even after she's been saying it. So whether or not now that she's saying it in the notes to the Ogden tables, the courts stop using it, remains to be seen. Her argument is a good one. That the statistics are based on either you're disabled or you're not, but there's something that runs counterintuitive to that with judges, and they don't quite like it. They like to mess around with reduction factors, and my guess is that they're probably still going to mess around with reduction factors, although perhaps not by as much as they did in Connor and Bradman and similar cases where they've split the multipliers. So next question is someone who wants to find the table and the tools as shown in the seminar. I will just quickly re-show you that. So I'm going to share my screen again. First thing I did was to go to the Government Actuaries site. It was this. Government Actuaries Department, Ogden Tables 8th edition. I'm going quickly now because I'm repeating myself. Click my way through and there they all are. I downloaded the Ogden 8th edition additional tables. They appeared at the bottom of the screen. And I opened them. I'm just opening effectively a blank, a new version. So that's where all of that came from. Just scroll down, see what else I've got. Could you talk us through additional tables on lost years, please? Okay, so a lost years claim is a claim brought by a living claimant whose life expectancy has been shortened as a result of the accident. Whether or not the additional tables are as useful to you is going to turn on how you're approaching life expectancy. So in your typical lost years claim, what you would have is your medical experts saying ordinary life expectancy is, say, 50, and claimant's life expectancy is, say, 60% of ordinary life expectancy, and therefore claimant's life expectancy is to a certain specific age. If you are using that approach, the clinical approach, which I think is probably the best approach, then what you're doing is calculating between certain periods. So the additional tables are going to be far less useful to you, but nonetheless you can calculate the life multiplier as in the uninjured scenario and the multiplier in the injured scenario to subtract from it. It's just not as useful a tool with lost years as with your ordinary living claimant claim. Next question, will I be able to save this presentation to my desktop for future reference? There is a plan to put this on the St John's Chambers website at some point. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so you can see me again. So you'll be able to rewatch it from there. Whether or not you can save it, I don't know. Next question, why do the multipliers continue to increase in the years after the life expectancy of an individual has passed? For example, 20-year-old male has life expectancy at 0% of 67.46 years, but multipliers increase until age 107 before levelling off at the life multiplier. Right, nice question. I'm going to reshare my screen so that I can answer it. There we go. So what did you have? You had a 20-year-old male with a life expectancy at 0%. So I'm going into the males at 0%, 20-year-old male, and you made the point that they it ticks up until age 107. So I'm just going to run all the way across. Oops, went past it. So let's go from age 100 so that you can see the effect that the question is talking about. Zooming in a bit for you. So there I am with my 20-year-old, multiplier to age 100 of 66.11, multiplier to age 101, 66.19, to age 102, 66.26. I'm going to highlight it so that you can see more easily what we're doing. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Change where I was on the screen. There we go. So at age 107, it gets to 66.36. Now notice the tiny change between 106 and 107, and the tiny change from 105 to 106. It's because the chance of surviving that long is really very small. And once you get to age 107, the chance of surviving to 108 is effectively negligible. So you find that the multipliers from a certain point, and it varies age by age, I'll show you that in a minute, get stuck. They get stuck at 107 for a 20-year-old. So if we go across to 125, which is where the table tops out, because nobody lives that long, we find that we have the full life expectancy in column DV, but it's the same all the way back here. I'll just show you the 21-year-old for the sake of comparison. You'll notice that with our 20-year-old, we top out at age 107. With our 21-year-old, oops, oh, screen's getting away from me. With our 21-year-old, we top out at age 108. Well, this is interesting. So our 21-year-old, no change after 109. But then, interestingly, with our 22-year-old, no change from 107. Interesting statistical anomaly for those who are into that sort of thing. But that's the basic answer. It's because once you get to a certain age, the chances of you even being there are sufficiently small that the chances of surviving another year are negligible. Next question. Please could you show the Excel formula for working out the age in years, months and weeks? Yeah, no problem. So I'll just I'll pick a blank cell here. just to give you the demo, I'll zoom in a bit more. So it was this equals to show that we're doing a calculation. I put in a certain whole number of years. In Steve's case, it was 38 years. And then all I've done is add a certain number of months. There are 12 months in the year. In Steve's case, it was 8 months. So we've got 8/12ths of one more year. So far, I've added 38 years and 8 months. And a certain number of days. There are 365 days in the year, or if you wanted to be very precise about it, you might say 365.25 to allow for leap years. It'll make no material difference. So I've got there a formula for 38 years plus 8 months plus 19 days, which gives me an age. I think I've got to the end of my questions. Thank you for staying this long. I hope that's been helpful. I'm going to log off, and thanks to one and all. Cheers.